I'm Chris Connor, the president of Franchise Marketing Systems. We are here today with Conan Edwards, the CEO and co-founder of Palmetto Bath, with his wife Michelle, also. And the what I wanted to do here today with you, Conan, was walk through the steps of what it was like to franchise the business model, talking a bit about the company itself, the industry that we're in, the history behind it. So why don't we start first? Would you mind doing an intro to Palmetto, the company and the background and where it started, who we are, and what we do? I think that would be a great place to begin.
Sure. Yeah. So I had worked in this industry for a while before starting Palmetto Bath. And, oddly enough, I didn't start Palmetto Bath because I had this mindset of the entrepreneur necessarily. I was looking for some consistency in an industry that can change quite a bit. It seems like it was all this uncertainty in my life. And, I worked for some good companies, but the company will get bought or another factor would change. And it kept putting my career into some form of uncertainty when these things happen. And so I wanted more certainty in my life. I wanted basically more control of how my life was going to go. And along with that, of course, we would have to make more money to do that. But that was really my motivation more so than just the mindset, I want to be an entrepreneur. And so I started this business with me and one other person, and I did everything but the installation. So I was sales, marketing at that time, whatever that might have been, warehouse guy, ordering guy. I worked 6 to 7 days a week. And then I was able to recruit my wife from real estate to come in and help me. And that took some relief off of me. But I spent the better part of the first year pretty much doing everything. And it just allowed us to generate a lot of revenue because it's such a great industry to be in. So it's definitely the right industry if you know how to do it. And of course, when it comes to franchising it, and we're talking to some people who aren't from our industry. So if you worked in an industry like I did, then you may know how to do this. And it doesn't really require as much investment when you know what you're going to do. But for folks who are high performers from other industries, careers in corporate America and those kind of things, this is a great way to get over that barrier to entry from the standpoint of a number of different things that would kind of create a barrier for somebody coming in from outside of this industry. And so that's one of the reasons we exist, is to help those folks not only get over those barriers to entry, but also find success quickly. But we started out in 2019. And as our company grew, basically, we scaled the business over time and built a good team around me to the point where I really didn't have a whole lot of day-to-day things to do anymore. So I was looking to venture into some new, exciting territories when I found you guys.
It's pretty amazing what you were able to accomplish from start to finish. You have one location, but you grew this one location to a sizable business without having a whole lot of, entrepreneurial background and things. What did you do to set in motion the scale and the growth and to be able to build the revenue the way that you did? And I've met your team. You've got an awesome team of people there too. How did you build this team and this model so that it could continue to duplicate successfully and give customers good experiences?
Yeah, it's really simple though. For me, it was anyway. Was what's the next logical step? You kind of make an assessment of where you are, and so what is the next step that makes sense in this process? And really, just building it just one step at a time, not trying to look too far down the road and get overwhelmed with too many details, but just be very logical and practical on making these steps. And I was probably a little conservative because of that. So what took me 6 years to build, I think a franchisee could do in 3 years because the plan's already there. Everything's already mapped out. And the difference of 3 and 6 years, right? When you can get to this point twice as fast, that makes a lot of sense financially. So I think the franchise model then justifies itself.
At what point did you decide to look at franchising? When did that come up?
Well, I actually met, I was Anthony, I believe, and we had an initial meeting. I may have met him through LinkedIn, I'm not sure, but we had an initial meeting and they introduced this concept of franchising our business, which I never really given much thought to. And I was really honest with him. I said, I've had a couple experiences in this space with franchises. I worked in a franchise system before, and I even looked at swapping my business out at one time early on to becoming a franchise because I kept getting these offers from one of the larger franchises out there. And my thought process was, well, maybe they can help me get to where I want to go faster. And then after meeting with them, I just wasn't a big fan of the franchise system. And I was honest about that with Paul and Anthony. And then one of them said this. They said, well, why not do it differently? I told them all the reasons why I didn't want to do it. And one of them said, well, just do it differently. Why not do it differently? And after that call, I started thinking, I'm like, they're really right. I said, this system that I've looked at doesn't make sense to me. That's why I wasn't interested in it. That's why I didn't do it. But I said, what if you did it differently? What if you actually reversed the way it was done and did it in such a way that it was in the best interest of the franchisee and it benefited them? And if it benefits the franchisee, both sides win.
That's cool, and I've definitely seen that too, where it's such a different perspective from you would have been the franchisee in that first version of this, where you would have converted in, and now you're obviously the franchisor, which is very different dynamic. I've felt that that's been the way that you think and work in everything that you've done in our year of working together here. Um, you look at relationships from both sides. You're very careful and methodical about making sure this is a mutually beneficial engagement. And I think that's a lot of why this has worked with you bringing people into the network and growing this business because of how you think and how you work. Could you walk through a little bit of what the franchise looks like? I mean, what are we offering to people? What's a territory? How is the franchise model structured now?
Yeah. So one of the things that really turned me off to becoming a franchisee of another company was I felt like I was going to be serving their best interest. And I didn't hear anything coming back to how they were going to serve my best interest as the franchisee who's going to invest in this franchise. And so I would say if I was just to put it all into a succinct nutshell, that's where we think differently. The way I see this relationship is my job as a franchisor is to serve the franchisee and help them get successful. They will do a lot of the hard work, the heavy lifting. We're there to provide the training, the support in a variety of ways that traditional franchises in this space don't really get involved. So it really looks more like a business partnership than a franchisee franchisor relationship, if that makes sense. And I got to tell you, it's a lot of fun. I mean, we have our first guys in Asheville and we feel like we're on the same, we work for the same company and we work together. And one thing that's helped us with our most recent signing of a franchisee in Atlanta is the feedback that we got from the folks in Asheville. Because let's be honest, I've never done this before, right? I know the bathroom remodeling space, the industry, but knowing what the role of franchisor is, I never done. And that's probably an advantage, to be quite honest, because I get to come with it, with fresh lenses and look at it differently. So I rely on the franchisee's input because what we built, we're continuing to build. So there's going to be more ways we're going to look to improve our processes and the things that we supply and support to franchisees, because ultimately, when they're successful, we're all successful. And it's a great thing. And so it's very important to us that we feel like that we're giving the franchisees everything we can to help them be successful. And that's going to be in a lot of different forms of service and support.
Could you talk a little bit about the process of becoming a franchise? What the steps were like and the journey from the idea to starting to put it on paper and getting everything organized so that you could begin to do this?
Well, that's where we relied 99.9% on franchise marketing systems, to be honest. I mean, as you know, I was a very active participant, but somebody had to lead that and it wasn't going to be me, right? So I was going to do whatever the work is. In fact, the way that worked out, the reason it worked out good is because I let you guys as the experts lead me in that process. My job was to put the work in and respond and do what I needed to do so that you guys could help us. And that's the same thing, if you don't mind me flipping it around, that we need from our franchisees, right? They need to let us lead, but we need them to participate in the process and put the work in. And I think that's why this went so well. And we started, I think, January of 2025, and we signed our first franchisee by June.
Yeah, that's
That
crazy.
was pretty fast.
So one thing that I think is interesting here, and I think you've done a great job navigating. You have franchisees that came from the industry, so they came into this with some knowledge and some experience, and then you have franchisees who have not. They came in with business backgrounds. How are you navigating that? How do you work with someone who both comes from the business and outside and help them fall into our system and our process and the Palmetto way of doing business?
Yeah, that's a really good question because neither one is a better opportunity than the other necessarily. Because when you come from the industry, you do bring in your own history and experience and knowledge. And so, as a franchisor trying to lead them, it could be a lot more conversations going on between processes. In other words, we may offer this process of one way of doing things, but the franchisee's experience from the industry has experienced doing it a different way, and so that's where we just work together and we learn from each other. And in some occasions, we don't necessarily know all the answers, particularly when we're talking to people from the industry. But I'm also learning with our other franchisees who are very high level people that there's a lot of things that we can improve on because they're used to working in a corporate environment where they've got more tools than we do, and so it's a great thing, and that's what we're really building here. When I think about it, the big picture down the road is assembling such a dynamic network of people that when you come to a national meeting of sorts and we're all together at the table, you don't know who the franchisor or the franchisee is, right? It's a bunch of high level people contributing and networking together so that everyone succeeds. And that's the dream. That's the vision for it, if that makes sense. So we're going to talk to people from all kinds of different backgrounds, but I'm already learning early in that, when you bring in the right people, they're going to bring in a lot of great ideas and things that are going to help us as franchisors become better at what we do as well.
It's great. Well, I've got to tell you, your personality, your communication style, the way that you lead is so conducive to this model really being a phenomenal way to scale and grow. Because I do think some franchises can be run with, or companies can be run with a little bit of like a dictator sort of way of being, and that's not conducive to long-term relationships. It's not nurturing opportunities when you have a whole bunch of people that bring different experiences and good ideas in. You are creating a conduit for that, and people are going to be excited about contributing and excited to learn, excited to be part of it. And I've already seen it here in the first year of this happening, and so excited to see where Palmetto is going here and what happens here in this year and beyond. Where should someone go if they'd like to get more information, Conan, on you or on Palmetto and the franchise model?
Well, they can start with our website, palmettobathfranchising.com, and they can actually fill out a form there. I would say that's probably the simplest, easiest way to go. They can actually call us as well. I mean, the phone number's there where they can reach out. And of course, we are partnering up with you guys, and they can certainly reach out to Sid. His name and numbers on a lot of the brochures and stuff that we do. He's a great guy to work with, very helpful, and so much knowledge of the franchise industry as a whole. Adds a lot of value to what we do, So there's multiple ways to do it. Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and so excited for where Palmetto's headed, and just thankful to be part of it with you, Conan. Thank you.
It's been a joy. Thank you.